and community engagement. Why dedicate this time to community engagement? As institution of higher education, our job is to teach, conduct research. So why bother with going out into the community to get this work done? What's the reason behind it? There are several reasons why this work is important, but I want to zero in on a few. And the most important one, in my opinion, is because of the negative perception that the public has of higher education. We are not viewed very well by the public. We aren't. There's this declining confidence that higher education is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, that we are very distant, in that we are not connecting ourselves to the community. They see us that what we are offering as not being relevant to the needs. We aren't preparing students for the workforce. We aren't preparing students for the job market that exists. We aren't doing the kind of work to make sure our students have the skills to survive and be employable in the society. So we are seen as irrelevant. These are all terms that people use to describe higher education. We're seen as out of touch. We aren't connected to our communities, to the places where we live, or where we reside. We are seen as indifferent, expensive. The expensive part is not totally our fault. With each time state government cut the budget for higher education, we are forced to raise tuition. But at the same time, when it's just paying our athletic coaches these humongous salaries, many times on the back of student tuition, then we are part to be blamed that we are very expensive, but not totally our fault. And we are seen as being disconnected with our community. We are not connected to the issues that exist in our community. So the overall picture the public has of higher education is not very good. It's not very good at all. Here the survey was done. Gallup poll done this data here from 2015 through 2024. And if you look at this chart here, you will see from 2015 through 2024, there's been a downward decline in how people perceive higher education. For those who think that higher education is very good or great, that's going down. It's now somewhere around 34%. And those who have little confidence in higher education is going up. It should be the other way around. So you can see that the perception the public has of us is not very, very good. Interestingly enough, the day after I sent this slide to Becky, the Chronicle published a new survey for 2025. And if you get a chance to read in the Chronicle. But for the first time since 2015, it's going up. So this is a little bit outdated now, I have to admit. The day after I sent this in, that article came out. And so right now, we are no longer 34% in the way the public views, we are now around 40%. So about 40% of the general public now think that higher education is good, which is great. As we are finally going up. And hopefully we keep going up. So, but even 40% is still pretty low. It's still less than half the population that thinks, higher education is not very good. Fisher published this article in the Chronicle. And according to Fisher, Fisher believed that if we can document the work we are doing, if we can document the impact that we are having through community engagement, we can use it to build trust. We can use it to build trust in our community, and we can demonstrate to the general public the value of higher education. So, and if we can build that trust and we can see the value, we will not be seen as the kind of institution that is distant, indifferent, and unresponsive. So Fisher argued that community engagement is a vehicle that we can use to build the public trust. And so the reason why community engagement is very important. We are visible, we are being seen in the community, and we are seen as making a difference. The Association of Public Land Grant Universities, APLU, published a 2019 article. And in their article, they urge institutions such as ours, such as Texas Tech and others, we need to engage in what they call public impact research. That is research where we are finding the answers to pressing community issues, and people are seeing the difference of the research that we are conducting. And it's research where we not only publish the result of our research in academic journals and books and chapters, what have you, but people are seeing the evidence of the research, but that research is actually making a difference. We find answers to practical issues. And if we can demonstrate the public impact of the research we are doing, that can help us to build trust in the community. They will see the university as not being indifferent, not being disconnected, not being irrelevant, but doing something positive to make a difference in our community. That's the responsibility we have as higher education institutions. So again, community engagement can help us to conduct these kinds of research. Engagement matters. Community engagement matters. Okay, as I said, there's so many benefits to community engagement. In addition to the research, through community engagement, we are teaching our students to be civically engaged with their communities. It's one of those high impact practice. I talked with Melanie last night, and she is overseeing a service learning program here. And she thought, oh, there you are. Yeah. I didn't realize you were here this morning. I didn't even see you walking. You didn't sneak in, Melanie. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And you know, the impact of having students engage in these practical kind of experiences related to what they're being taught in the classroom. It's just wonderful. And community engagement allows us to do that. It allows our students to be engaged, to make connection with what they learn in the classroom with the real world issues, and it enhances learning. It's also a source of new resources of revenue for the university. Through community engagement, we can explore grant opportunities, grant for, issues to address issues in the community. Many donors are excited to contribute and donate money to the university for endeavors where the universities are making a difference and working on projects in the community. They probably won't get money for faculty salaries, but if the faculty is working on a particular project to address the issue of homelessness, for example, or to eradicate some kind of illness, philanthropists are more likely to donate money to the university. David Wirtz, University of Minnesota, has done lots of research in this area. You've probably met David Wirtz. David has done a lot of research in this area that talks about the connection between philanthropy and community engagement. So I've talked to university presidents and pros and said, if you really want to raise money, use community engagement as an opportunity to raise money for your university. People want to hear what universities are doing to help their communities because they want to help. They want to help. So it's a revenue generating vehicle for universities. And I don't think we have tapped into that enough. We have not. We're still trying to figure out how to do that. Through community engagement, we can compete for students. If we can demonstrate to our students that if they come to our institution, that they will get all these relevant work experience. So when they graduate, they already have some experience in their field. because they're doing service learning courses, they're doing internships, they're doing field experiences. They are getting experiences to prepare them for the workforce. And of course, the more experience a student has, the more employable they will be when they look into the job market. And this work, because students are learning more, it improves graduation rates. Okay, students have a sense of belonging when they work in groups, when they work on projects collectively. It gives them a sense of belonging. And many of our new faculty, this is how they were taught as students. So they come to the institution wanting to teach this way, and they are attracted to institutions that teach that really promote and advocate for community engagement, because this is what they've been exposed to. So, and of course, all of this will enhance the public image of higher education. So there are many benefits to community engagement, and I cannot overemphasize that. Any questions? Okay. So I talk about the fact that this work helps us to demonstrate the difference we are making in the community. But what it does is it allows us to tell stories. I talked about donors earlier on. Donors want to hear stories of what we are doing. What are you contributing to society? What are our students doing in the community as part of their courses that is helping to address the issues that are involved? What kind of research are our faculty doing? We can tell these stories. At the University of Louisville, we arm our president with information on different partnerships that we have. So as our president travels around the state, wherever the president is, he or she is armed with stories of what the university is doing, that particular region of the state. To show again, we are connected to the state. We are not indifferent to what is happening in a particular area of the state. We want to show that we are relevant to the state and to that region. So stories are important. And again, there's no such thing as a feel-good story about what an institution is doing in a particular community. People will connect to that. They can relate to what you're doing in their communities, because it's impacting their daily lives. Okay? And so through all of this work, as people hear about what we are doing, it can counteract that negative perception they have of higher education and of your institution. They'll say, oh, wow, Texas Tech is doing that? That's wonderful. I didn't know that. You're changing the views that people have. But we have to tell the story. Many times we are so busy doing this work, we don't tell a story. And that is something we're all guilty of. And I've said we, at the University of Louisville, we are guilty of that. We don't tell our stories enough. We don't. So your communication marketing team needs to be on top of what is happening. And many times we are publishing, and writing about the medical research that we are doing. And, at the University of Louisville, we did the world's first hand transplant at our medical campus. That made big news. We did the first ambulatory heart transplant. That made big news. No, because we have a great medical school and they're doing a lot of research. Many times it is those kinds of research that are highlighted, but the work that we are doing in the communities, many times never catch the news. And we are making a difference in the lives of people. So we got to be more proactive in pushing those stories out there. We have to. Because no one else will do it for us. So Powell and Walsh, again, I encourage you to read this article of Powell and Walsh published, and they talk about community engagement. And they talk about the value of community engagement and the fact that they see community engagement as a vehicle that can change the negative perception the public has of higher education. So there are many scholars who believe that through community engagement, we can actually change the perception of higher education and what people think of us. Okay. Yamamura and Carr, likewise, they published a book, and in their book, they talk about the impact of community engagement and the way it can actually change, you know, how people perceive us and how important this work is, and to change the public perception. So there are many scholars who believe that community engagement is the vehicle we can use to really make a difference in our community and to change how the public view us. Another reason why this work is important is because if you want to apply for the Carnegie classification, you've got to demonstrate the impact you are having. You cannot apply for the Carnegie classification and not demonstrate impact. And you have to demonstrate impact on students, on faculty, teaching and research, as well as impact on the community. I'm a reviewer for the Carnegie classification. Actually, I'm going through reviews right now. And one thing that I have observed in many of the applications is that they are doing the work. There's no doubt about it. But what they are not demonstrating to us in the application is the impact they are having. What are your students learning? What are they getting out of the experience? It's minimal. I know that students are benefiting, but universities are not able to determine how it's benefiting their students. Likewise, they cannot demonstrate how this work is actually making a difference in their communities. That's one of the biggest issues we have seen in the Carnegie applications. So this is a good time for Texas Tech to determine how can we make sure that when you guys apply, you guys are able to demonstrate the impact you are having in all of those different areas. Okay, so it's very, very, very important. Okay, so when we talk about impact, I mentioned these before. There are 4 areas we're going to talk about: students, faculty, the community, and the institution. Okay, because these are the 4 areas we're going to talk about in the Carnegie classification. And so I'll spend some time talking about these 4 areas. We will go through all of these, and we will share with you what we are doing at the University of Louisville to address impact in all 4 of these areas. Okay. I see people taking notes. Becky has these slides, so she can share these slides with everyone later on. So you need to write down every single thing on the slides. Okay, so just take the notes that will complement what is in the slide. Okay. And Becky, also, I sent you an article to share with everyone.
Yes, I've sent the articles and the documents in the chat. There's also printed copies of those documents that you sent over there.
Okay.
And then, yes, all the slides will go out to everybody after. So
Excellent. Thank you, Becky. Okay. I spent some time talking about outputs versus impact. And the reason why I spent some time talking about this is that many times we confuse these two. We confuse outputs as impact. And again, in the current classification, this is what we saw. People said, oh gosh, we had so many students who were out in the community, providing so many hours of service to the community and valued at this number of dollars, millions of dollars, which is great. We want that. We want that. But that is not telling us what difference the students made. So output are these numbers, which is great. When we write reports, when we do evaluation, when we write grants, we want to be able to include some numbers in there. So outputs are great. Keep collecting these numbers. We have to. We need to. But don't confuse those numbers as impact. Sometimes we implement programs and we know, for example, we started a clinic in a community. We started a tutoring program. We started, an environmental, campaign. That is a program that was implemented, but again, that does not demonstrate the difference we are making. And so sometimes when we confuse the programs that we implemented as evidence of impact, those are all outputs. Okay, those are all outputs. And I've seen lots of that in the Carnegie application where people confuse outputs with impacts. So when we talk about assessment, I use this picture here of a garden because this is, to me, one of a good example of we can see a difference. You plant a garden, you have a garden, You plant some seeds, and in a few weeks or months, you have little plants coming up. Then later on, you have fruits or vegetables or something you can consume. And you get the nutrients from that. Something has changed. This dry piece of land is something that is green and flourishing with nice green plants. A change has occurred. Assessment is like that. Assessment is based on the change that has taken place. What change occurred from the time you started to where you are now? What change took place? What difference did you make? So think about what you are doing. What difference did you make in the lives of people? What difference did you make in the community? What difference did you make with those with whom you are collaborating? Okay. To what extent was the needle moved? This is where we were when we first started, and it's where we are now. So you have kind of a yardstick to measure where you were and where you are now. That's assessment. Okay. So Rod did a presentation a while back, and I was just impressed, Rod, how you were able to capture this so, with the three W's. And so I have the Rod Williams three W's on here. I think you've heard of his presentation, what the three W's. But Rod, you captured it so well. And so here it is, your very own person here at Texas Tech. And the three W's that Rod talked about is, what is the need that you identify? What is the need? The once you identify the need is, what did you do about it? What did you do? You talk about what you did. And then what was the result? What happened? What happened? That is a simple way of explaining what assessment is. And, Rod, these three W's can work in many different areas. They can work as you assess, your project. It can work as you document your work for promotion and tenure purposes. It can, work to document your work for your annual review. Here's what I did in my work. Here's the problem that I identified, and here's what I did. Here's what happened as a result. Very, very simple, very, very easy. So thank you, Rod. So I said, I learn from people as I go around. I don't have all the answers. And sometimes people do something and say, I think I like that. That makes a lot of sense. And I borrow it. And I borrow from people everywhere I go. Okay, so be careful. Share something good to me, and I see it in my slide the next time I present. That's what teaching is all about. You take the good stuff and you put it all together and you keep improving on what you're doing. That's teaching. So when we conduct assessment, okay, you have to determine what exactly you want to assess. Okay. As I said earlier on, we can't assess everything. We can't. It's just too much. You need to have a whole army to help to do all the assessment that we need. So you got to think about what exactly you want to assess. If you're working with students, for example, okay, if that's where your interest is, you may want to think, what is important? What is a priority? What's a priority for the institution? What's a priority for, for the state perhaps? What's a priority for your college? What exactly do you want to assess? Is it student learning outcomes that you want to assess? You want to assess, for example, perhaps how the experience changed students. So figure out what exactly you want to assess. Then you zero in on that. If you're working in the community, okay, you may want to think about what change occurred as a result of your intervention. To what extent do you make a difference in the community? And I must add this part. When doing assessment with your community, the key word here is with. Whatever assessment you conduct should be in collaboration with the community partner. Community engagement is not I say, I do what I want. It's what can we do together? What do we need to do together? to make this work relevant for all of us. And so this might mean, working with the community partner to determine what they want to assess, not necessarily what you want to assess, because it's a collaboration. And one of the drawbacks of community engagement is that we lose some authority of the work we do. That's partnership. That's negotiation. That's collaboration. I get some of what I want to do, you get some of what you want to do. And we find a middle ground and we work there. Something our politicians have not learned to do, unfortunately. And so we have people leading our country right now, both at the state level and federal level, who cannot come to the middle ground. It's my way or the highway. How do you come talk to us, community engagement people? We can teach our politicians a thing or two. We really can. Honestly, we can. Need to learn from us. So, very, very important. If you're working with faculty and you want to determine how, impact on faculty, again, what is important? Something you want to think about, how this work impacting faculty teaching and their research. So what is important? You might want to look at, how it's impacting the work they are doing. For the institution, you want to look at promotion and tenure, perhaps. You want to look at, policies within the institution. How is this work being institutionalized within your university? So these are ideas as to what you may want to assess. So think about Texas Tech, what's important to you, what's important to your provost, to the president, what's in your strategic plan, what's the priorities of the institution, and that should guide what is being assessed. Okay. Whatever we do has to be tied to the university priorities. Otherwise, it's irrelevant, it's not important, and will be cast aside very soon. So if student retention is important to Texas Tech, make sure we have something to demonstrate that by students taking these courses, we are increasing retention and graduation rates. And you can then, present this to your provost and to your president, saying, here is how community engagement or service learning courses is actually helping the university to reach its goal of retaining more students and graduating them and get them employed. As an example of how we can attach this work to university priorities. Okay, very, very important. So we will talk about these 4 areas. We'll talk about the activity tracking that we do, how we track activities across our campus, and Pat will talk about this in detail. I'm going to do a quick overview of this section. I'm going to pass it on to Pat. But what we do is that we ask our faculty to do an annual report where they report everything to our office. What they're teaching in the community, they're researching the community, with whom they are partnering, the partner contact information, the kind of courses they're teaching, and the impact they're having. Then once we get this information about their community partners and their contact information, we then send a survey to all those community partners, where we assess, get the partner's perspective. What difference is the university making for your organization to the community? And that is how we get data on how the university is impacting the community. Okay, and it starts off with the activity reporting. As we don't have all the partners, the faculty do the partnerships. Okay, and then we survey our faculty, we work with the Office of Academic Planning. I know the person from academic planning is in here somewhere. Where is that person? I heard they were here. From academic planning.
I think he's talking about you, Brandon.
Oh. Well, hi. Sure. You're here. You play an important role in all of this. As I'm sure I hear you do lots of data collection for the university. Right. Well, we work closely with your counterpart at the University of Louisville, because we want to know how this work is impacting our faculty and impacting our students. So we do surveys, we partner with them, to survey our faculty and our students. And we have rich data that we share. So I'm sure Rob will be talking to you sometime down the road.
Yep.
That's why I think he invited you here. So we will talk about all of these. And then last time we talk about the community engagement plan as a tool that we use to assess community engagement across our institution. So any questions so far on what I covered before Pat start his piece? Any question what I covered so far? Okay, I guess there are no questions. Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to go into the section. You have a question? Yes, please.
It may not be the right time, but could you explain maybe a little bit of what you mean by activity tracking? How do you do that?
Sure. I will go into the details about that. Activity tracking is the activities that we collect from our faculty and staff across the university. Let's say, for example, you are teaching a community-based learning course, which is what we call it on our campus, because we had the word service learning didn't apply to a research one institution. Our School of Nursing had all these clinics, our law school has all these law clinics in the community, and they said, we're not doing service learning, but we are placing students out into the community to do real work, making a difference. And the definition of service learning didn't apply to us, so we came up with the term community-based learning, which is more applicable to who we are as an institution. So if I say community-based learning, I really mean what you guys call service learning, okay? So I want to clarify that. As I sometimes I use the term a lot because that's what we use. So let's say you're teaching such a course. We want to know about the course. We want to know what your course is about. How many students are in your course for this academic year? What exactly you are doing, with whom you're partnering, the partner contact information. What difference is are you and your students making in the community that impact, and hopefully you are measuring impact, and you can say this is how the work is making a difference in a community. We also want to know if you receive any grant to support your work, and so, how much money it is. And then there's a question, and I think there's a question here, there's a survey here somewhere that had all of those different questions that I shared with Becky.
And the instructor's filling that out, or is it
Yes.
standard? Okay.
Every faculty's fill those out. Those are the activities. And that then help us to determine who received the community partner survey that is in the second line of assessment. So it's all connected. Okay. And Pat will explain what we collect and how we go about doing that. Okay. All right, Pat, can you hear us?
Yeah, sure can. Is everything working there in the room for you?
Yep. All right,
Excellent.
we can hear you.
Great. Just holler if anyone cannot hear me or if anything needs to be adjusted. Henry, you'll progress the slides for me?
Sure.
Excellent, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Rod and the TTU Outreach and Engagement staff for hosting us. Thank you to all the great TTU leaders that are here on the call and they're in person from across the institution. They're coming and spending a little time with us this morning to talk about assessment and outcomes in relation to our service of engagement with communities. My name is Pat Smith. I've been working on this stuff with Henry for about 10 years. He's a great boss. It's a pleasure coming in and contributing to our university's mission every day under Henry's guidance and working with Henry and all of our great internal and external partners in Louisville. Just quickly before I jump into why we track and what we track and how we track, just a really quick little overview of our Office of Community Engagement, which probably operates somewhat similar in some or a lot of respects to TTU there in Lubbock. Basically, we're an office, an office with a vice president under the president, and we sort of serve as a connective tissue, if you will, between community partners and academic and administrative units as they do their work in the community. So in terms of how we interface with the community, we do a lot of networking, organizing, connection making, communicating, advocating for things like engaged scholarship and shared resourcing. And then on the internal side, we do quite a bit of faculty training, sort of evangelizing for this work across schools and colleges and administrative units, and then really a lot of sort of work with faculty that Henry leads in terms of helping faculty improve this work, develop this work, develop outcome measures for this work, and really also looking at the policy side of this from the central administration side. How can we sort of continue to push for proper rewards for faculty to do this work? How can we help pull in resources for this and the like? And then sort of at the center here, all of us together are hopefully contributing more towards these engagements that are helping student learning, helping the student experience, pushing forward faculty research, pushing forward faculty's ability to connect with the community, but overall really providing that impact in the community and helping to improve neighborhoods, helping to improve our partner organizations' capacity, and overall looking at developing our region and our city. So why we track, a lot of reasons there. The board of trustees often is, what stories do we tell about our work that'll get us the recognition that we need, that'll help us win awards, that'll help everyone see us as a positive influence and a positive institution in the community. It's used for marketing quite a bit. Our sort of latest marketing campaign really features heavily on sort of that student's role in the city. When you come to the University of Louisville, you're making the decision to come to a place where you're going to be learning out in the city. You're going to be contributing to positive outcomes in the city, and sort of city service being a reason that you've decided on this as the place you want to go to university. Budget justification, and always important, never more important than now, demonstrating that this work is helping students learn, it's helping faculty progress in their careers, and it's helping the communities that we serve. I see that, in your strategic plan currently, that Rod mentioned up front, you guys have this massive strategic priority of transforming lives and communities through outreach and engaged scholarship, with these great goals around engaged scholarship, around sustainable outreach and engagement, around recognition for faculty and staff, which is massive, and around strengthening those collaborative relationships. So that's tracking this work that we do helps us demonstrate that we are meeting these goals that we're laying out for ourselves. Huge. If we don't assess, we cannot show that we've improved. And this is something that we constantly sort of have to work on with our leaders at the university as the people that do assessment. How do we bring this information to the president, to VPs, to deans, associate assistant deans, to show them that this is where we are, this is where we could be, or this is what we've learned from this assessment. How do we go past this? And sometimes this can be sort of a difficult thing to do. Is people, or frequently leaders want to tell stories about how we are at the top, at the peak, doing the best, performing the best. So sometimes it's a challenge to have a conversation about doing better, but that's critical, especially as we get into this last reason about why we track Carnegie. This is really, the major impetus that helps a lot of people sort of understand that they need to make the investment in doing the tracking. But people that devised the frameworks for Carnegie and other assessments, 10 years ago, it was good enough just to show that you were doing assessment or that you were doing evaluation. In today's world, people that develop these frameworks like the Carnegie community engagement designation, they want to see how you're using the data. So it's ever more critical that we take this information that we get through tracking and actually make program improvements with it, actually demonstrate how we can do better with it. But again, if you're not sort of doing this work around tracking and assessing the stuff that you do in the community, then it's going to be probably difficult to attain that Carnegie designation, which really is a big deal for universities that want to sort of demonstrate that they're meeting their mission as they serve communities. Next slide, Henry. Thank you. So this isn't totally like a new concept by any means for TTU. There have been a lot of great work at TTU in previous years, possibly in current years. I just sort of found a quick few things late last week around activity tracking at TTU, how it's been done, or possibly still being done. But there's an interesting sort of parallel with us, and as we get into the question and answer thing after our presentation's done, I would love to hear about some of the things like the Raters Engaged survey that was being used to do some tracking of this work, and how things have gone. Like there's a what was the other system? We have a similar digital measures has been used at some respect. So we have sort of a very similar situation at the university, where in the past we just did activity tracking via our own sort of form and system, and then based on various decisions around the university, these sort of like silver bullet kinds of faculty systems platforms get put into place. We had one called Folio. It's interesting to see how different people try to collect this information. There's efforts that are happening around the nation where we have things like software like GivePulse is another one, collaboratory proprietary systems that sort of universities can pay for, that lots of other universities are using. So there's all these different ways that different people try to track stuff. I'll talk a little bit more about how our process has sort of evolved over the years. I think the takeaway on how to track isn't necessarily, well, do we buy this proprietary system? Do we do it ourselves? Do we use existing institutional faculty platforms? Do we try to launch a survey on our own in partnership potentially with institutional research or other university assessors? I think the answer, is what's going to work best for your institution. I think the important thing is that you've got an office that's overseeing it and that's keeping it consistent and that's keeping it going over the years, because when these things go away, it's kind of hard to rebuild them, and there's this kind of like discontinuity with the effort. So whatever it looks like, I think it's okay for things to evolve and adapt, but it's important that they sustain year to year. Next slide, please, Henry. So this is sort of similar to the previous slide. This is where we get annually with our activity tracking, and sort of based in the language from Carnegie over the last 15 years. We look at this on a spectrum from outreach to partnership, where on one end of the spectrum with outreach, you've got sort of less intensive, kind of more one and done collaborations with the community, sort of like neighborhood cleanups or one-time service events. On the other side of that spectrum, we've got our more collaborative, ongoing, deeper partnerships, oftentimes with memorandums of understanding or agreement with our partner organizations that have plans or goals, often tied to specific research projects or pools of state or federal funding. So that's sort of the way this looks at U of L. These are the number of activities we get, and we just sort of kind of lump these all together because of that slide Henry showed earlier around outputs. This is just traditionally a lot of the ways that leadership have wanted to see things, right? They want to see the total numbers served, total sort of estimated dollar impact, how many total estimated number of students involved. So when we do this work across the institution, we need to be able to roll it all up into one number, even though that hides a lot of different kinds of work that's happening. But the way that a lot of folks do this, we've got variables within that activity tracking that lets us break this out into its sort of different ways it happens across the university. We sort of, I guess we can go to the forum next. We have a forum that works for everyone, and this is essential. Um, Different schools and colleges interact with the community in different ways. Different administrative units interact with the community in different ways. What the College of Business is doing looks different from what the School of Public Health is doing. It looks different from what Student Affairs is doing. Looks different from what Athletics is doing. So we need one form if we're going to roll all this up into this one number. For that output reason, we need one form that works for everyone. But then if we want to talk about getting into the impact information and how this impacts specific departments or specific communities, we need to be able to get in and have the variables and the items within these that help us sort of slice and dice the data into a way that helps us get what we need out of it. So, back to that discussion we were having about, well, do we do this ourselves? Do we have an annual survey? Do we try to tack this on as a module in some existing faculty platform for faculty reporting? Do we buy Collaboratory? Do we buy GivePolls? We've decided to use a no-code database application called NAC, which is only about $50 a month, up to $100 a month, depending on how much storage you need in there and how many apps you need to develop. That lets you build pretty sophisticated databases and forms without really needing to know how to do a bunch of front-end web work or back-end sort of SQL database coding kinds of stuff. So our form has evolved since I've been here quite a bit. We had a really early push about 12 years ago to get this work done, and it was a priority of the president. And we had really dedicated help across all the units, helping to get a pretty lengthy form filled out. But over the years, there's been a lot of sort of criticism from faculty about forms being too long, processes, sort of being too onerous. So we've pared this down to just a very essential sort of the things that we want to hear about. Mainly, can you tell us about what this work is? Who is it with? Can you give us contact information for who it is? And can you tell us about the impact in a narrative format in the community and impact on yourself as faculty, on your students, and for the institution? And we also have some other items in there that help us know about the status of this. That was a big thing in the way this used to be done before we were able to sort of leverage better technical tools. Is early on, it was unclear if there wasn't a good process for year to year understanding if activity had dropped off or ended since the last academic year. So that's an essential piece of this now. We have to go through and review this every year to figure out, are the things that we're saying we're doing in this academic year still actually occurring, or did they end? But just that little piece of information in itself, did this activity end, is a really powerful, sort of data point, because it lets us know a lot about what's happening at the university. I feel like one of the, the biggest sort of challenges to this work is sustainability, in the sense of when a key person goes away, oftentimes we lose a key partnership that we had that was, one of the things that we held up as an exemplar for the university. So knowing when our major players, whether they're internal to the institution or they're, nonprofits that are closing their doors because of cuts to funding, knowing when these things are happening is crucial. Not that we can always do something to help in those cases, but potentially there's something that the university could do to maintain an impactful partnership, because we found people that didn't know found out that it's ending. There's so many things I could talk about. This form is something that all faculty and staff at the university can easily get into. We set it up about 6 years ago with a SSO login, so they can just click a button and get right in to the system and start working away. Hopefully, eventually, we have an IT environment at the university where we could build this internally with university provided tools, and that may be on the way soon, but we're not quite there yet. But it looks like we're turning a corner in terms of our IT capabilities and may be able to do this without a third-party system in the future. Next slide, please. I could talk about this one all day, so I'm just going to cut this one off. This is sort of that rolled up aggregate report result that you get from this kind of data that gives us this year-to-year picture about how we're doing in aggregate, where we are we still working in our place-based initiative? Are we out there working across the state? Where are we internationally? How many sort of faculty, staff, students are involved? But really, the sort of interesting stuff is sort of down in the form, in my perspective. Let me see, where are we? The next slide. But just through all of this data, we can provide tools that let everyone around the university and people external to the university see who and what we're working on. What colleges can go get their own data for whichever year they're on. They can see who the partners are, who the partner contacts are. Next slide, please. And then a major thing is just demonstrating that we're meeting our mission. So, University of Louisville comes from a mission of serving the city, going back to its beginning, in terms of standing up a medical school way back in the day that could help train doctors to help heal the people of the city. Flash forward to an urban serving university, with all the schools and colleges working across the disciplines. But that urban mission, it's sort of makes us a major anchor institution, with a mission to achieve excellence through teaching, research, and public service, for our metropolitan area, and being responsive to these local needs. But more and more, our state legislature wants to see us out there working in the state, even though we have a metropolitan urban mission. Our state political leadership wants to know how we're are we doing as much as UK is doing, for instance? Are we working with rural communities? Are we working in Eastern Kentucky? And so we're able to take this data and show them that, yes, we are standing up clinics for dental health, arts programs, educational programs in Eastern Kentucky, flood mitigation, environmental projects in West Kentucky coal fields. All of the work that we do across the state, we can demonstrate growth in that, and keep showing that the people that want to know what we're doing wherever we're doing, we can demonstrate that thanks to this data. But also, next slide briefly, we can demonstrate our mission out across the world too, which took a major hit during the COVID years. But it is in good hands with the International Service Learning Project, and it looks like international programs are sort of taking off again. But we've got the ability to, next slide please, to map all of this, which really helps for planning. It helps different people see, what we do in the community. I think we've got here red dots outreach, blue dots partnerships, just to sort of demonstrate where we are. You can zoom this out and click on anything and see sort of who's doing what, where. This is helpful for different leaders as they go to different communities to talk about our relationships with them. And all these have an impact narrative within them, so people can go and learn about the ways that the faculty and students and community partners involved see the power of what they're doing on the ground with these projects. And we've also, next slide please, we have this this whole part of our website, community.louisville.edu/impact, where you can go and read through the impact narratives for all of the activities that we get reported to us. This is something that helps sort of demonstrate the work, and really helps, because when you roll all of these up to that aggregate sort of number, those output measures, you miss the individual power of these activities. And there's so many different stories, so many things happening. I mean, you've got stories of, literally, curing cancer in individuals, helping to reunite children with parents via our School of Social Work, the law school helping people attain, their rights as citizens. Just an amazing amount of impact happening in communities across the Commonwealth and out there beyond. This work around activity tracking is sort of like, it's the foundation for the impact assessment. It lets us do a lot of other things and lets us know about other ways we can go deeper on specific projects, or how the work affects different kinds of the people that we're interested in. So one of those would be community partners. If you could go to the next slide, Henry. Yeah, there we go. So thanks to the activity tracking, within that, we ask our internal people who they're working with specifically, and can we have that email address? And then from there, we're able to do a survey with those partners where we ask them a number of questions. We ask them for open-ended items around how, they see the partnership, how they see the impact in the community from their partner organization experience, how they see the university. And then we have, a number of sort of like Likert items around how they see sort of, like for instance, the one on the screen, do you think that this partnership is having a positive impact in the community? And the more we get into this, the people that are responding to these surveys, are believing that we are having impact. And many of them are writing in the open-ended areas about what that impact looks like for them specifically. Surveying is difficult. I think even more difficult in the post sort of COVID area, but we're eventually rebuilding. Sort of those 2022, 2023 years were, I think, particularly difficult to get people to respond to anything, but I think we're sort of coming back. I think a good practice here is to maybe reduce the number of items in your forms, which is difficult, especially if forms are being designed via a committee or a group, because everybody kind of wants their stuff in there. But like, the compromises are going to need to be made, because I feel like I see higher response rates when we have shorter forms. And we had a great community partner survey form that we had an IRB on, and we're doing great data collection with for publishing. But we've also, with that form, I think saw a little bit of drop off. So in recent years, we decided to shorten this form quite a bit to begin to hopefully get our survey numbers back up from our partners, who are, busy folks just like our faculty are. On the next slide, please. This is aggregating and sort of coding some of the open-ended data. And I need to do this for our last administration as well. But to get sort of like, we made this into a report, for an internal report, to help people understand sort of what some of the issues were that our partners were facing. So we had many great, stories in the open-ended items about impact and about experience from our partners, about things going well. But we intentionally focused on what could be improved from these open-ended items, and looked at sort of a series and did a report and presented this and tried to work this into unit level plans, tried to work this in with higher level administrators about how to improve the partner experience. And a lot of this, had to do with just how do I better connect with faculty, who are often very busy and get pulled in a lot of directions. How can communication flows be improved? It's, capacity issues. Maybe not having enough time to plan or do evaluation, plan up front or do evaluation on the back end, resourcing, bureaucracy, which, interesting that one was sort of on the lower end, given a lot of the conversations that we've had in the past about the difficulties sometimes with working with the university. But some really great specific examples in there that could be used to go toward, say, a policy change. Can we cut a little red tape or change a process here if that's going to help us have impact with a partner in the community? Next slide, Henry. Going into looking at the faculty sort of side of this, we have a survey that we do with faculty every 2 years. We're due for another one, asking about the faculty experience, how they see this work, impacting what they do with their students, what they do for themselves and their colleagues in terms of research, and how this fits into their role at the university. So we see a lot of good, responses about how this work as a high impact practice improves their teaching. Next slide. How this work helps them with their research in terms of that community engaged scholarship that maybe is contributing to their publishing, giving them sort of an angle in their field, that's helping them get into the journals they want to get into, that's helping them do the work that they want to do, alongside and with community. Sometimes I feel like looking at in the yellow there, this neither agree or disagree. I think, we do this as a random sample survey, and we get in people that maybe have different kinds of relationships with this work. But at the beginning of the survey, there is an item. The first question in this survey is, with the definition of how we see engaged scholarship, do you see yourself involved in this work, or do you not see yourself involved in this work? The people that do get one series of questions, the ones that don't get another series of questions, asking them sort of why aren't they involved? Would you like to be involved? Would you like to learn more about being involved? Why aren't you involved? So that's a great thing about this survey, is sort of that one side of the people that answer no, and question number one, learning more about sometimes why they're not, and sometimes that has to do with the fact that they don't see that there is those rewards and promotion, or encouragement from their department. And sometimes it's just that maybe they're in a field that's not particularly amenable to engaged scholarship or community engagement. But more and more, so you might think like chemistry, math, maybe these aren't. More and more we see really impactful stories of chemistry professors being involved in local high schools, and doing really cool work, getting students, getting high school, public school students involved in STEM. Next slide. This is a cool one. So when we did this assessment coming up in 2021, I would say, past 2021, using a lot of this assessment data that we'd been building, Henry really started to ramp up a lot of, he'd already been doing great, faculty development and faculty training, but based on what we were hearing and learning, I think Henry started to develop, more opportunities for development and training, and networking, based on specific subject matter that we were learning about through our assessments, and just sort of, I think, tapping into this hunger for faculty to want to do this work. So we go up, in 2021 from only like 53% of faculty feeling like their department or unit supports this work. Next slide. Into the 2023 assessment, where that improves dramatically, where we've got almost 3/4 feeling like they're getting that support from their department, understanding from their unit about why community engaged scholarship is good for them as an individual faculty person, and why it's good for their unit to be involved in this work. Next slide, please. Curricular engagement. So this is, of course, a huge win on the Carnegie framework, where this is probably the most statistic heavy section of the Carnegie application, where they want to see all of these sliced and diced numbers for your service learning courses, which at U of L we call curricular engagement, or specifically, Carnegie uses the term curricular engagement. We use the terminology community-based learning. And this encapsulates any coursework where students are involved with community partners at the course level, sort of in the syllabus. This is the way that overall course is designed. We made a decision to do this. This is easier to track. I know we do have courses where specific sections may have that sort of partner angle to them, but we need this to be sort of embedded in that full course at the course level. So this needs to be tracked year to year, because as everyone that's sort of on the curricular side of things there understands, these courses change over time. Faculty come and go, syllabuses and structures of degree programs change over time. So, tracking which courses are actually involved in the community is something that we work with departmental leadership on a biannual basis. Basically, we take our list of what we knew and thought it was, and then present this out to department chairs, where they can take it to their faculty and see, are your courses still community engaged? Do you have new courses that are community engaged? And then we can update our lists, and then go to our great folks at Institutional Research to help run the statistics for these courses after we've, sort of turned the off and on switch on whether or not it's community-based, on or off for people. Thanks to some of the course inventory systems that we have now, it's easier for faculty to jump in and do this, and to update their courses. I think the challenge is helping I think, different faculty that maybe don't live in this sort of engagement world to understand what it is we're looking for and introduce them to the right definitions and make sure everybody understands what it is that community-based learning is for U of L. Next slide, please, Henry. And thanks to this data, we can show sort of that this is really, a huge, I think, testament to Henry's work is the sort of the number of new courses that have been added, since Henry's, led a lot of this work here at the university, and the change in the number of departments that have been involved in the work is also huge. Every year more students involved in community-based learning courses. So this is great stuff to be able to track and really shows the impact of getting out there and helping faculty succeed at this, whether that's introducing somebody that already understands this work with a community partner. Oftentimes we have faculty that move here, from outside of our community, outside of our city. So, helping people understand sort of the landscape of what the nonprofit or local government, city, state agencies look like that relate to their work is a way in and to help improve, the numbers. And another thing, just helping the faculty that maybe always wanted to get involved, but are afraid that they're not going to sort of, be able to publish on this or have this contribute to the advancement of their career. So all of this combined is helped sort of advance curricular engagement and service learning courses at the university. Next slide, please, Henry. So something else that we're able to do through this tracking is we know which courses are curricularly engaged. So thanks to leadership at institutional research and thanks to like this being a commitment made, in the past through at the top, we were able to get items onto student evaluations about their experience in curricularly engaged courses. So this is one way we need to keep working on how we assess the student impact on students here, but this is one way that we're getting good information about impact on students for this coursework. So we have two items. One is just a Likert scale item about how the involvement with the partner improved their learning experience in the course, which generally is, pretty good, but, having that sort of quantitative thing, is a way to communicate this easily. But we do have an open-ended item, which is massive. Next slide, please, Henry, thank you. We've got years of this data now, and there's so many great individual stories of impact for this work. Let me just pull out one specific example because it's just like it almost like reading some of them almost makes you want to like break out into tears, where that we have a law and government program through the School of Law where they go and teach students. This is a long-term partnership. And those long-term partnerships are often the ones where it's easier to demonstrate impact, staying with, a community partner over time. Projects deepen, strengthen, evolve. But there's a student talking about how they thought that, they're in this underserved community, teaching students about their rights, about the law, about how local government works, about careers in local government and careers in the law. And this law student at U of L talks about how they thought that they learned more from these students than they taught these students. They understood more about this neighborhood, about what it's like to come from an under-resourced community, about what it's like as a young person today, with the challenges of, all of the myriad challenges for being a young person in an under-resourced community. So it was just a really great thing to read. And that impacted, from this law student's perspective, how they might direct their career in the future, the things they might be interested in, the kind of work that they may get into. But what you see in front of you on the screen is just sort of looking at all of these thousands of open-ended responses we've gotten from students about their service learning courses, and just sort of a ranking using an AI that's within a proprietary qualitative data package, looking at just sort of grouping these as we try to get through these. Henry and I desperately need more staff. We have a lot of data. We can't get into it as deeply as we'd like to, but AI is helping at sort of a surface level, help us begin to group and sort of slice and dice some of this data and ask questions of it. So we could, ask this AI to get into this large group of student responses about specific things. Where we would love to take this student data is to have, units come to us or departments come to us and be like, what are the students in our unit saying? But overall, at the aggregate level, this is really great for showing the impact of this service learning work for students, especially in that this is setting us up for the real world in terms of our experiences and work. We can show this to employers. We can say that we came to U of L and got prepared for the next chapter in our lives. I think that is it on my assessment pieces. Henry, I'm happy to talk about the plans, but this is really your brainchild and fantastic work of getting this sort of institutional assessment off the ground. Happy to chat about this, but I assume this was going to be your piece. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll talk about this piece. Thank
Cool,
you,
thank
Pat. And don't go away, guys. I'm going to
Oh.
cover this slide, and then we
Okay.
have time for questions and answers. Pat just covered how we are collecting data at the University of Louisville for student, faculty, and community partners with which we work. In his last slide, I want to emphasize that there were two things that he talked about. First, the first thing he talked about is that we do an audit of all of our courses to determine which of our courses are community-based learning courses. And it's a process we use for that, which I can talk about this with you later on at your other team, but it's a process we use. I can go into the detail of that process. And then the second part, he talked about the survey that we attach to course evaluation. So we attach some items to course evaluation, and that is how we get data from the students on how this work is impacting them personally. So those were two things that you talk about. We use this data to make decisions. So we can talk about how we use this data as well. Carnegie asked, you collect this data, great. What do you do with this information? And so for your current classification, you have to demonstrate how you are using this data. Again, in our conversation, your questions, and so we can talk about into the details about how we go about doing that. But I want to talk about this very last slide here, which is institutional assessment. And what you see here is a sample of a community engagement plan. In 2015, when we applied for the Carnegie classification, at the end of our self-study, we saw several areas where, as a university, we were not doing well. And we realized if we are to be reclassified in 2026, which is this year, by the way, we are up for classification this year. I am not reviewing my own application, just so you know. Even though I'm a reviewer, I haven't seen the application. I don't know who is reviewing it. Someone other than me is reviewing our application. So we are up for classification, for reclassification this year. But we had to be ready. And so I asked the committee who was working with me in the self-studies, like, what are those critical areas that we need to work on to get us ready for 2025? And we identified several areas. We needed to promote engaged scholarship. People across our campus did not understand what engaged scholarship is. They didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what we were talking about. We did not know how to do it. So we had to address engaged scholarship. We realized that as impact assessment data collection was not well, which led us to what Pat just covered. We had to address that. We realized that we didn't have a presence across the community. We didn't have a presence in our place-based initiative, which is the West Louisville community. So we had to address that. And so what we did is, those areas where we realized we had to address, we came up with university-wide goals. We went through a process. My office didn't develop these goals. We have a steering committee. It went through the steering committee. It went through faculty senate. It went to the provost office before we finally determined these are the 4 university-wide goals we will work on, because we wanted them to have ownership. We took it to the deans, make sure the deans said grace over these goals. because we want to make sure everybody was on board. It took us a while to get there, trust me. But by the end of the day, everybody was supportive of these 4 university-wide goals to get us ready for 2025. We came up with this template. There, the goals that you see to your left are university-wide. Every dean was presented with this template and said, look at these goals. Determine what is important for your school or your college. Come up with some strategies on how you will achieve this particular goal. And so the strategies are different for every unit, for every school and college. Every dean, every vice president, even the vice presidents have a plan. And they come up with some strategies as to what they can do to advance this particular goal, what those outcomes are, how they were going to measure to make sure they were making progress towards their goal. So we asked them to set targets. He said, set some targets, because some of these goals you will never fully achieve. And I'll give you an example. Promote and engage scholarship, you will have to promote from now until eternity. Why? Faculty come, faculty leave. Deans come, deans leave. Vice presidents come, they leave. Presidents, provosts come, and they leave. And every time you have new people, you have to re-educate, you have to re-promote this work. So you will never fully reach promotion. And so you have to set target. Let's say you want to promote this work by working perhaps on more faculty professional development. And here's a target. We will offer so many training at the end of the year, and this is what we hope to accomplish through those training. That can be measured easily. Can measure that quite easily. And that is how deans are able to measure progress toward a particular goal. So you have a target. So the first 4 columns is the plan. These deans develop. That's the plan. The last 2 columns is part of the annual report they submit to my office. So in the measure progress towards target, at the end of the year, they will write in that column the progress they made towards their target. Okay, a sentence or 2. It's a very, very simple plan, because if it's too long and complicated, people will not complete it, and they will just throw anything in there. We want to make it as simple and as easy as we possibly can. So they state in that column how they have progressed towards the particular target they set. In the last column, action plan, you write in there what you plan to do as for the next academic year. Maybe things happen, life happens, COVID hit, we couldn't do anything. Therefore, we never accomplished our target. Budget cuts. So we had planned all these different training and this international program overseas. Budget cuts, we could not travel overseas. So therefore, here is what we are doing instead. Or maybe we were not, our target was set too low. So we need to increase the target, because we really realize we are doing much more than we thought we can do. And so therefore, we're going to raise the bar and set a much higher target. That is in your very last column. So the last column tells me what you plan to do next year. And so this is what will be in next year's plan. So every year, deans submit this report to my office. I review this document, I provide feedback, I provide recommendations and suggestions. I say, here's something you need to work on, or you may want to explore. This document forces every dean, every vice president to look seriously at community engagement and determine what role their unit can play in helping the university get ready for the next Carnegie application. It helps us to embed this work within the fabric of the institution. The word is institutionalize, because it's present in every school and college and administrative office of the university. To the best of my knowledge, we are the only institution in the country that has something like this. This was in our Carnegie report. I mean, there's a question in the Carnegie about how you are institutionalizing this work. This is my evidence right here. There's no better way to say this work is embedded in every unit across the university. And it's very simple. It's a one-pager. This is a one-pager. Nothing complicated. You want to make this work as simple as you possibly can. To get as many people on board as you possibly can. And people love simple, they love easy, and they love short. And with that, I go ahead. And then Pat and I will take questions. So on everything that we cover, we could not go into all the details of everything. You know, there's a process, how we got to where we are, and we didn't cover all of that. So this is a good time to ask those kinds of questions. You know, if one wants to clarify certain things, please, this is the time for us to do so. The people on Teams, please write your question down in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I think Becky can see you. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your questions, we can do so. We can do that as well. All right, so questions you guys may have.
There's actually one already in the chat. Patrick answered it to an extent, but I would like to hear your input on this as well. It says, does your university have an official designation for classes performing community engaged learning? If yes, how is the CEL class designation certification process?
So if I understand the question correctly, how do they designate community service learning courses? Yes, we have a definition for those courses. So we have a definition and we have criteria those courses must meet. For example, the courses must you must be working with the community partner. There must be a connection between course learning outcomes and needs of the community. Students must be providing some kind of service. It could be indirect service, it could be direct service, or it could be a research, or it could be advocacy. But there has to be some kind of service that students are engaging, and the work has to be mutually beneficial. If you can meet all those criteria, then your course is given the designation of a community-based learning course. And every 2 years, we do an audit, and we work with all the deans, all the department chairs. We say, here are the courses in your unit. Here is the definition. Here are the criteria. I want you to go through all of your courses and see, are these courses still being taught? Are there new ones that we didn't have last year that you know how to meet these requirements? And that is how we get an up-to-date listing of all our CBL courses, which is required for Carnegie, by the way. And if you cannot demonstrate you have a system in place, you probably would not get reclassified. So you've got to have a system to keep track of your current courses.
A follow-up question to that is, does this process include or involve training for faculty regarding how to assess your own work?
Yeah, we do lots of workshops. The faculty survey that Pat talked about, one of the questions that we ask is, what would you like to learn more about? What are some areas you would like to learn? We get back to using the data to make decisions as Carnegie requires us. We use that data to determine what faculty would like to learn more about, and we do training and workshop on that. And the impact is one area that we cover. For all of our surveys, we try to use these surveys to guide the type of training we offer to our faculty. What kind of workshop, what kind of resource we can provide to our faculty based on those surveys that based on what they share in their survey. And we do the same thing with our community partners. Like, for example, when we survey our community partners, one of the feedback that we got is that many times some of our students were not prepared for the experience in the community. And so what we are working right now is a handbook. And this handbook is going to provide some guidelines to faculty on how to prepare students before they are sent out into the community. We take it for granted that our student can get out there and function and know what needs to be done. And many times they don't. The next time they need some guidance on how to function in a different setting outside of the classroom. And that is one way we are responding to what our partners mentioned in their survey. So surveys are very important. It's not just for survey's sake, but how do you use that data to make decisions and guide the work that you are doing and improve? Pat talked about continuous improvement. We use these data for continuous improvement at our institution. Yes, Rod?
Henry, since you brought up the community partner survey, which is such an important component for the Carnegie classification or reclassification, did you get any reluctance or have you heard reluctance from faculty in terms of them giving you the contact information for their community partners so that your office could survey their community partners?
Never an issue. Never an issue. No, honestly, nobody said, oh gosh, don't mess sharing that. I personally haven't heard anything about that. Pat, have you heard anything about that? Because I haven't.
I think the bigger problem is just getting faculty to report it all, which can be a challenge. And that's something that we've learned over the years. I think there was an expectation when I first started here 10 years ago that with just like a gentle nudge, faculty were going to jump on board and fill out a form with a lot of details. And that's sort of not the case. They need a lot of assistance. They need, I guess, just continuing sort of work with someone like an office like ours. Like this, we wouldn't be getting any information if our office didn't exist, because we're here to find different ways to get this information from faculty. And I think that and I think that's one of the sort of, I think products like GivePulse and Collaboratory are amazing and they do great work, but I think without the actual human person that's like wanting to know where the information is or why a particular unit isn't doing what they used to in terms of reporting, having somebody like whose job it is to maintain this data, I think is very helpful in making sure that you're getting the data. Because whether it's a survey like ours or our online system or something like Raiders Engaged, it's like you've got to have like that follow up to get the information. But one thing that I do, I know these processes, like what I wanted to say, like they're not comprehensive. We know that we're missing things. We know that there's people not filling forms out. So it's like I do a lot of outreach. Like if I have an activity in my system, and I have not seen that form get updated, like I reach out to that person and ask them about the status of that. I ask them, what's changed with this? Is the activity still the same? Have the impact, the way you see it, has that changed over time? So I think it's just essential to have that kind of a thing going on. And then I go through people's websites to find programs that or activities that may not be in my data. I just think having that, not expecting to get all the information from one source, I think is a good way to look at things. But in terms of people not wanting to give us the email, it's way less of that and way more just not filling out that part of the form because they're super busy and getting pulled in too many directions.
I think a big part of that is that we spend a lot of time going around explaining to faculty and to deans and department chairs the importance of this data. So you have to build a culture in your campus, and culture comes through educating people. And so initially we spent a lot of time going around, presenting to units and talking about why this work is important. And we were able to build a culture. Unfortunately, the COVID hit, and the kind of loss of momentum in COVID hit. We are trying to rebuild the culture that we had before. But prior to COVID, we were doing pretty well in collecting this information. And we need to get back to where we were. Yes, question back there.
One of the things after COVID was kind of an increase in digital or online experiences and things, specifically for the community engaged learning courses. Primarily, are they face-to-face or do you have any courses that are online hosted or that they've found success in students who are distant, but they still have some partner that they could possibly support digitally or virtually, or has it primarily been only face-to-face interactions?
Our work is primarily face-to-face. We have come to realize that the world is changing. COVID changed the way we teach. We realize we can actually function, virtually. And so that is, we are now trying to address. I had a session last fall, or early spring, something I can't remember what it was. And in this session, the partners that we brought on board were all partners where our faculty could work with them virtually. Many of them weren't even in Kentucky, but they were across the US. And we had a Teams meeting, and they presented about their organizations. Here's my organization, here's what we're doing, here's how we can partner with the university. And that was one way we are hoping to get our faculty connected to the virtual world, because there are more and more online courses being taught. And we have to provide those experiences for everyone. We are accredited by SACS, the Student Association of Colleges and Schools, that also accredits you guys. And one of the requirements for SACS is that what you offer to in-person classes, you also offer for online courses. That's a requirement. And so we need to make sure we are doing what we can to make sure online students get the same kind of experiences that in-person students are receiving. So we aren't there yet, but we realize we have to address that area. That's one of my priorities. Carnegie is over. The last year or two, I was busy making sure we were ready for Carnegie. Yes, sir.
So how are you incorporating community engagement into faculty assessment using
Promotion and tenure. That is an area where we are still working on. That is quite an interesting piece. Not just at my university, but across the country. It's one area where we have not seen as much progress. Some units are way ahead of others. We are a decentralized university, and deans have autonomy in terms of how promotion and tenure is administered. And so we have unit level policy, and we have university-wide policy. Our School of Medicine has a great PhD document. Our School of Nursing has a great PhD document. So it's dentistry. Interestingly, social work does not. This surprises me, because social work by its very nature, you're all in the community with the social issues. So I'm surprised by that. So we are working on that area. We have a plan in place. And this plan was actually submitted in our Carnegie application. I use Carnegie as leverage. Get lots of my work done. And I tell my dean, I tell the president, I tell the provost, if we don't do A, B, C, and D, chances are we will not be reclassified. But this Carnegie is leverage. And in the plan that we submitted this past spring, we had planned to bring in a consultant. And sometimes I bring outsiders. I could do the training myself, honestly, because I know you know how to do the training. But sometimes it's hard to be a prophet in your own land. And I have learned that. And I'm sure I can do what I'm doing, but sometimes you have to bring in outside voices. People listen to outsiders more than listen to insiders. So we're going to bring in someone to educate our deans, department chair, and personnel committee on engaged scholarship and promotion and tenure. They will be educated. The person will spend several days on the campus doing that. Once they are done, the provost and the provost has already agreed. Every dean will be charged to review the promotion and tenure guidelines and make sure we have appropriate language in the document to support engaged teaching and engaged research. And then we're going to educate them on how to review this work. Because when I come to learn, I'm not policy in place in just one step. The reviewers still need to learn how to review the documents. I will give an example. In community engaged work, we are supposed to collaborate with our partners. in everything we do, which means when we publish, because the partner should be a co-author in whatever you publish. Traditionally, in the academic world, they want to see one author. They want to see one author. And if you partner, if you and I publish something together, that's cheating. That's considered cheating. You didn't do this all by yourself. They did not. So how can we give you full credit? There's a lot of understanding of how community engaged work is a little bit different from traditional work. Even though we co-authored, we still work our bums off to get that work done. And so we have to educate the personnel committees, the reviewers on how to review this work. And there's a whole workshop that I offer in that section. That's one example. That's one example that I have just provided. But it's a whole big list of things. Here's what you need to look at. That's another workshop that I do, that trade that I offer. If it's something you can do a webinar on that, I'm happy to do a webinar on that with you. And secondly, we will do the webinar.
Maybe for you or Pat, but is there a story or an impact that has stuck with you or has been your favorite so far to hear about out of your work that you've come to learn about or hear about from the work?
Yeah, I'll share one I share with you. I'm happy to share one as well. You want to go first, Pat, since I just talked? Or if you're still thinking, I have one ready. I can share.
Yeah, sure. I think just like a quick one, and then you go, Henry. But like I think like the work that we're doing like with the community and being able to demonstrate that. So we've got a social work professor that's like really working with a community group called Be the Change here, where you know it's around trauma care for individuals that are experiencing trauma in particular communities. And they've really gone out of their way to sort of like work together in a completely like everything's like equal, right? Like they're publishing papers like co-authored together about their work and helping people recover, I think in immigrant communities, recover from trauma. So it's like they're having this clear community impact and helping people psychologically and helping people feel better in their environment and where they are here in Louisville. But at a deep, like at the sort of like scholarly side of things, it's like, that partner is an author on the paper, and the funding is completely sort of mutually decided upon. The programs have shared decision making with the faculty and the graduate students and the community partner. So I really love like those kinds of stories, where it's like firing on all those cylinders, where students are learning, graduate students are learning here, community members are being impacted via this direct service. And not only are faculty advancing their career and publishing in top-rated journals, but that partner is also an author on these articles, which is huge.
And I'll share mine. There is an organization in Louisville called Hotel Louisville. And Hotel Louisville, for want of a better term, is a homeless shelter. But it's called Hotel Louisville because it's located in a section of town where you cannot have, according to the city codes, you cannot have a homeless shelter in this part of town. So they turn this homeless shelter into a hotel, and they charge all the residents a penny a night to stay there. And it's one donor, and God knows how many dollars that cover all the pennies for like several years. So several floors are designated for people who are seeking a home. Then the rest of the floors are for people like you and me who pay regular rates to stay in this hotel. And it's called Hotel Louisville, and we partner with them. And we offer lots of training to these different residents of this facility, and we provide services. Our law school has a law clinic there, and they provide legal services to the residents. People who are going through divorces, who have lost, they have traffic tickets, but they need this representation. There was one resident, a female resident, who had some mental health issues. And so many of these people too are, recovering drug addicts. So this one person shared that she had a nice, big, beautiful home, and she lost her home. And nobody believed her. She kept talking, I had a nice big house, and in this part of a very nice neighborhood in Louisville. So here's a person who is homeless. And when she talked about this nice home she had in this nice neighborhood, it was like, oh no, she's just mentally ill. That's not correct. And she kept telling this story over and over to different people, and nobody believed her. One of our law students who was working there heard the story and said, let me check into the story. So the law student started doing some investigation, found out that this person had an accident, and in the accident suffered a head trauma, which made her mentally ill. There's some brain damage. In the process, she was not making the payment on her mortgage and lost her home. She did have a home. He was able to work with the bank, and I'm not a legal person, but with the laws. But apparently there's some law that pertains to people in a case like hers, that the bank should not have seized her home. There's some law, the person was familiar with the law and was able to work with the bank to get this woman her home. So she was able to get her home back and to be able to work out some kind of deal where she was able to make the payment. But the important thing is she got her home back. And when I heard that story, it just gave me goosebumps. As to how a homeless person was able to regain her nice, beautiful home because of the work that our students are doing. That's my story. And there are many others I could share. That's one.
I think that's a really great place to stop with an inspirational story. But we're not done for the morning. We are going to take a 10-minute comfort break. Give Henry and Pat a chance to catch their breath as well. We've got some refreshments in the back of the room. When we come back in, let's say 10 minutes, Henry and Pat are going to work with us on a workshop type setting. So if you're interested in going through the workshop, maybe you can just give a 1-minute overview of what we're going to do with the workshop, Henry.
Yeah, sure.
Both folks online and people in person.
Yeah. There's a worksheet here that we have. We have copies of this worksheet, and the people now we can send them the worksheet so they can have it. And what we want to do, we're going to identify, here's a priority for us, whether it's student or faculty, impact or community impact. And so we want to determine what exactly we want to assess, and then come with some possible items that we can use to assess. The goal is by the time we are finished, we will have the foundation of instruments that we can use to do some assessment and measure impact here of your institution. So that's what, and I'll go into some more details when we get back. Okay, so it's what we will do.
Let's take 10 minutes. We can reconvene at 10:35. We'll be back in here for those of you who are willing to stay and go through the workshop both here and online. Online folks will break you up into breakout rooms on Teams as well. So 10-minute break.
Hey, Pat, if you can hear me, Pat, do we have the activities form that we can share with Becky?
Yep, sure do. Sure do. I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, and Pat, also what we could do is maybe we can share it on the screen as well.
Okay, I've got all three of those in the chat already.
Awesome. Thank you. Looks like they're up in the chat there.
Okay, so the faculty survey, committee survey, and the activity form.
I was like, no, I went around my house, I was like, I really don't like it. So, and then I was like, I have two homes, and I'm so glad I didn't like it. So I'm glad because I was like, I'm gonna go to the, but like, in my heels, I'm like, to go back my car, and I was like, no, we're flat. You guys, I was just, you know, so they were okay. It's good timing. So I didn't know if you wanted to see yes.
We can do this.
Yes.
You also we can and then they can submit what on to you. The next
But both of my parents are teachers, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, with the flow.
Yeah, so I have 4 kids. I think that
So you have the handouts. You need the resource.
Person here too. They always.
Yeah. Would you want the copies this week? Yeah, that'd be great. That's my brother.
I think only one thing. Oh, only which one. Sure. This is.
Maybe that's the belt.
Just do this, submit it, and then anything you do for assessment in the class, that's data. And I was wondering, that's what, do you need a copy for yourself?
Yeah, just in case.
Which one, or do you want all?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know about. You don't want one.
Oh, thanks. It was hard. I know. I was really glad you were thinking. Oh, thanks. That's okay. But, you know, the approach you took. Identifying those elements. Yeah, that was a great idea. I don't know what idea that was, but, that makes sense, given your interest in AI. Well, that was very helpful because otherwise that process would, Oh, you're fine. Yeah. No, it's all right. Was the other one in your junk mail too? Yeah, the main thing I was worried about was, in terms of changes. I can identify it. I don't know a lot of it, and I never know how information keep it close. That's what our journey. When we look at some of those another thing. Oh, yeah, that's also separate to connect. No, yeah. That's another one. Well, that's why I'm excited about Notebook. So with that, we can go where you want to go. So if you say, if you just want to, use an example, upload all the OPs. To the Notebooks. Chat with it, like chat. Then you. We're going to be saying holding notifications because it's only allowed to draw from the audio that you tell it. So just drawing from these OPs. And so I thought in retrospect, like if I'd known about that system before that. I didn't know class was going to be going to, but I don't know, even Google had that rolled out at the time. Things are changing. They're in the ocean. Yeah. It's, in fact, my team's up. If you give them an artist, let's say, years ago, article, it will give you a podcast, it will create a podcast. So you can tell us where we go. With AI voices, in like, yes.
No, you're good.
And I'm like, what about your article?
I gotta say.
In a very colloquial, never way.
Ever. Yeah.
And so she showed me about.
We used to take, in fact, I'm taking Jared's wife next week on my vacation.
What is this person? How do I understand?
It's like a-
Like so much information on company or. It's really
And
hard.
she's a lot older than us, 20 years older. And she can't drive, so I
Yeah.
I'm actually. I just want to listen
and not do anything else, whereas other people I think are able to
Help with survey.
at the same time I can't.
I'm the
Trophy doesn't. My guess was 12.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But he's now
Yeah,
married
I think
with his
that-
ex-girlfriend.
He's got his,
Never told me.
working on it.
It's,
I mean, that was hard. It's like, what do you have? Well, my research work back then, because you.
cool. Nancy, Poppy, and Nancy.
Probably not enough time.
Nice.
I just wanted to run in
Yeah.
a situation.
I did,
For 5 years.
like 2 webinars for him, for a truck.
So I met with his partners, Parkways.
Amazing. Oh, and I'll mention, we also make a script for you. Meaning if you would be the preferred the one who's doing the podcast. And this is not in like an AI voice. So that it can,
Yeah, that's-
even though I know it's very easy, but it's through AI now, but we have a house together. You just have to find a partner.
But they were talking about.
Who is buying?
No, but I don't think I could use that information.
I guess they have like 66
Generate
kids.
some of the certain questions.
Exactly. And I'm sure that
Like they have 4 different tracks.
In the audience.
Depends on what they want to go to.
that's great.
So they.
Yeah. Like Megan said, she's really not.
Computer sitting there, they should have
Like training and.
Thanks, the question comes fast, and automatically the answer.
Would be cool. He's like, oh, hold on, I gotta type a little faster. So I'm gonna grab a drink.
Long story short, we finally came up with, they bring those 66 kids to me.
He's a loner.
Behind the scenes, and
So I went.
curators to show what their job looks like, how much they get paid, all that kind of stuff. And kind of get involved that way and see where it goes.
Megan said, you know,
Internships or whatever.
I know everything about her.
So I feel like, how would I go
During COVID, he was,
forward to the next
he
step?
lived in Sacramento, he was moving to San Francisco. So when you're still married in California, you have to. Married, I have to sign,
Right.
what's it called?
Research,
Some kind of waiver, whatever.
because it's a great partnership. What's the next step?
Doing something crazy.
I think what we should do is sit down
She has no issues.
what they want out of it and what we're next to build.
I mean, so she was gonna say. Yeah. I myself am looking for a little bit, so yeah, really. Okay, so, just very.
They're very strong. Infrastructure around that for a very specific thing for a very long time, but I don't think it's tied. No, it's just different, right? Yeah, things about this in terms of pathways for faculty.
Do each.
Yes, to be involved.
Yeah, yeah. So, because I mean, we didn't finish.
You know, the museum's hard because it's.
We tried to complete last year, but
Have
so, of
curators.
course, they were voting. What are we gonna get last year, but
Writing
also.
necessarily or
improve researchers, well, it's their responsibility to, but they're both adults, so they should have. We're at parties. Instead of circling.
That's what we need.
Oh, she's gonna, you off in there.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Thanks. In here, how long?
Should be in line with the
Really
university.
understand everything, but I do think it's time for us to probably others to do that.
I always say it's like some things.
And then we can talk more about that too. Well, that's good to hear.
I didn't believe. There are certainly some of that language that's finding question.
You know.
Well, yeah.
Meet with him, go to him and say, here are the opportunities within our domain.
Is it?
We've been working.
I like that. If that happens, it's more.
Against her.
Continue either line you're working on stuff or less.
I never really watched.
They have copies of all of those.
Maybe 20 to 30 minutes.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, they have it all. They have the worksheets.
This part, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, they've got that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just, and what we can bring on, I feel like, then we're gonna double sheet.
Yes, yeah. and If they want to either email it to me or they.
An email address that is 12lover@hotmail.com.
Yeah, I'll go add that in the chat.
12lover. No, but I really do love that Brady dog.
CLA for him, I need to be us.
Loki. Amazing.
Everybody has a chance to grab some snacks from the back of the room. I think we're about ready to reconvene. Alex, do we still have folks online?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, Henry, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. We don't want to lose the online peoples. They might think we forgot about them. All right, guys, so here's what we're gonna do right now. You should all have a sheet that looks like this, okay? And for those people online, the sheet it's a blank worksheet that says developing oh, that should be some typo there. I never saw. Developing an assessment instrument. So it's not developing an, as it should be developing an, A-N. Oh, sorry about the typo there, because I never saw just now. So that's what, you should all have this worksheet. What we hope to do is use this worksheet to identify what you want to work on. And for the people online, you might want to work individually. We realize that we can get you to work in groups and teams. The people here in person, you can work in groups. You know, we can divide ourselves into 3 different groups here. I would like to have one group work on students. If you're interested in looking at student assessment, let's form a group over here. So anybody who want to work on student assessment, we can work over here. Then a group that will look at faculty assessment, faculty impact. We can maybe form a group somewhere here in the middle. And then for those people who want to look at community impact, we can form a 3rd group over here. So let's move around a little bit based on your area of interest. Once you have identified your area of focus, whether it's student, faculty, or community partner, you fill this form out here. And I want you to identify, a particular maybe area, a project perhaps, or an area you would like to focus on, and then determine what you would like to assess. What would you like to assess based on what you identify for student, faculty, or community partner? So you're right. Maybe you want to assess, faculty scholarship, whatever it is you want to assess, or community partner impact. You also should have examples of our instruments. Once you identify the areas that you would like to assess, see where you can find possible items in our survey that we have here that could align with your area. Because what we hope to do is to start with the creation of instruments that you guys can use here. Okay, so to give an example, for community partner impact assessment, you want to look at our instrument. You wanted to look at these different areas. You wanted to know, you want to assess the partnership. You want to assess that. So there are items and look at partnership impact assessment. We wanted to assess the perception that the community partner has of the university, because Carnegie asked a question of perception. What perception does the community have of your institution? And so we wanted to assess that. So there are items in the partner survey that has to do with impact assessment. By the way, this survey is also to help us with our Carnegie certification. So we look at what Carnegie needs. And we try to kill as many birds with one stone. And I was told by the environmental people I shouldn't use that term anymore, and I forgot. So I want to say, we look at how many pins we can knock down with one rolling ball. How about that? So we looked at university needs, priorities, also what does Carnegie require? And Carnegie wants to know about perception. So we have items for the part committee survey on perception. We also want to know opportunities for further collaboration with these partners. So there are items that we ask about collaboration for future endeavors. And then we want those project impact. So those were the areas that we wanted to assess for the community partner. So the survey, talks about that. So final, use this as an example. What exactly would you like to assess for each of those different categories? Instructions are clear. Then once you decide, then you come up with some possible items based on the survey that you can then jot down. And then we will collect these and share towards the end. How much time do you guys think you need for this? Like maybe 15, 20 minutes? Like 50 minutes of conversation? 20 minutes? All right, so 20 minutes.
So I'm sorry, what was the, piece? Is this students,
So students, faculty,
faculty?
community partners. So let's move around. And I'm going to come around. And I am going to, see if anybody have any questions. I'm going to come around. Pat, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still
Okay,
here.
good. Pat, can you monitor the team's people and see if they have any questions?
Sure.
And
Yep,
then
I'm
you
here on
can
chat.
work with these people, okay?
Yep, right here. Here on chat if anybody needs me.
So for all the people on teams, if you need some clarity, need some guidance, just reach out to Pat via the chat and Pat can help you with that.
This community over here.
Yes.
All right.
Can we pull them up?
Share this with you guys. So this is the one we had with the partner. And this is the different categories that we wanted to assess.
For students' engagement is fine.
So this is easy. If you guys have an easy guide, it has the categories, it also has which item, which question, which will get to that area.
This is all inclusive, huh? All right. So. And my question was the area of focus.
Yeah. Are you joining us? Yes.
You guys here.
So we were just trying to articulate the area of focus, so student learning, student engagement, student specific,
And less about the strategic plan. This is kind of encapsulated into engagement, but I was talking about student learning outcomes. So I've gotten really focused on. Yeah, you remember some of those goals from the CES engagement strategic plan? Some are going to be about. Responsibility. We don't have to get too bogged down by it, but, there's skills for it.
I mean, there's also that skill for.
I don't think our college is still putting your community together on that side of it.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
I didn't really.
And I'm trying to approach that with the mindset and balance of quantitative and qualitative kind of things, because I feel like there's different things you can kind of rank your response. That's great, but to.
It was the third theme.
Well, it is basically, but I didn't find it.
That is going to allow the students to share.
Wasn't identified.
Which takes longer to review and longer to synthesize, but
Considered to be
I'm kind of
identified, so.
a perfectly balanced of how you. That balance.
Anything else I just read is a leadership plan, that the reason.
Sometimes they're focus groups.
Focus used in sort of, the legislators want to see exactly what our plan is.
Up to practical ones. I don't think there's half to do.
So you know.
So, course evaluation wasn't
Assess.
Easy.
Yeah, but you guys have the staff and tribes to do the course evaluation. You want to have it more in depth, a list of more in-depth questions. And if you run them for this
Monographs, citations,
publications,
publications, grant
Do you host those voluntarily on the students, or is that part of their trip, course?
If you take a service learning course, it will automatically show in your course evaluation.
Yeah.
We work with academic planning.
For the focus group part of it?
Oh, we don't do one thing. We don't have the capacity to. Other institutions.
We'll call it scholarship, maybe?
Something that.
No,
Yeah,
but I,
scholarship?
but I would agree with you that.
This is what
Okay.
place a course.
Maybe we
in the
pick one of the
category
tough
of community
things.
engaged. learning course.
You know,
And one of those things would be this built-in assessment to the course content.
Right.
It's not something additional, it's part of the course assessment. And so having taught Thrive's courses,
American community.
I eventually figured out,
So we should say
that this needed to be, so I had, a pre-reflect.
Thrive, rural resilience.
Were targeted in those.
Remember that one?
And then I had a progress reflection, and that had some quantitative. Because they were assessing each other
we don't
as
have
well
an
as what they
extension
were doing, because they were
service,
working in
like-
groups. And then at the final, that final thing,
Go out to the community and give.
I'm just gonna ask them, what skills did you get out of this?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Like an open-ended field, yeah.
And so they,
Kind of a post-reflection. or
yes,
after.
yes.
Assessment.
So,
What was there and what was missing for cut off.
yeah, and the key is, and this is something that's so easy to do,
No
and I would love for this to be part of that criteria, is when you say, I want to teach this course.
Colleges.
There's a built-in IRB template that says everything I collect from students as they take this class is an artifact.
Individuals.
And I'll be able to
Go out and they.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And if you have that, it's like for semester to semester to semester, then you're building up some nice
Yeah.
data.
Okay, so and it actually, that kind of IRB is really easy to get
It's
because
very
if
easy.
it's part of your, like your
How many
automatic student
students
doing
we
your work,
get,
then
how
it's
students lost.
half, it is exempt.
It's an exempt.
But the idea of having some sort of blanket and template.
They're doing the work already. It's.
Blanket one, I'll talk to Cassidy Street
Well,
about.
that's good. And I've got more than happy to say.
Engagement.
This is
Like,
like,
you have an example of what you
Yes,
can.
build this in and that's my IRB for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good too, because of how new it is to certain people. If they're, it could be because of Roadblock, if they make their own, so having a template will increase buy-in,
Would you mind share that template with me? I'll take a look.
No,
at
I'd be
that.
happy to do
Yeah,
that.
I'll take a look at
I
that.
mean, we use Caillou, so.
Well,
I
it
just
might
have
be nice to orient around
And
And there's certain statements that the Thrive board is looking for, if you word it just right.
Go out into the community, into the rural areas or just.
They get
Go out to Guadalupe, so Guadalupe Parkway.
Exact language, a reflective conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you say focus group, it triggers
Public should be introduced.
For methodology.
everybody feels.
and there's no thresholds
So
for
what can
like
you,
the amount
what
of
can you
people.
call it?
So according to.
What kind of option?
A reflective conversation.
Ah,
That was the word. correct.
smart.
To do that
Yeah.
discussion.
Have that conversation with biographical
Data.
I feel.
Yeah,
I like.
it's a
it.
reflective.
Community perception, which she said was part of the Carnegie classification.
That's what you have to write.
Determine.
Write a statement about.
This is the method I use.
Future collaboration, which I'm not sure to know, is that about capacity building? Or like how much you can literally do with the.
Yeah, it aligns with the course content.
Project can be
Smart.
So are there some courses where
I'm not
that's
sure how
more
that's.
than others? And so you just put your heads together and you come up with,
Oh, I see. So there's the partnership course contacts.
these are the questions. If I was doing
And then
an
there's
essay
particular projects.
to get at a particular piece of learning to assess.
Right.
Impact the community.
And
So yeah, which,
easily see.
you know,
how that
knowing the
could be
communities that
added to
you
a
serve.
reflective component, or you had the reflective component CSA question.
Whichever works.
Most interested in.
That supports also the faculty's like initial conversation and selecting which to utilize those for. Or, these are the things that.
What is that perception? What, you know, I mean, I do something I can see support that really provide this
conversation.
instead of really seeing it directly gives me about their. Yeah.
Is that something you want to participate in?
The partner's filling out something quantitative and qualitative from.
And do you have an IRB for that?
I think I do not. That's a whole different thing.
Partner would be a whole different entity.
Provide
But
this
this is
opportunity,
the-
and
that's-
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And this is where I talked to you.
Right, you might think they want to learn violin, but they want to learn drums because violins cost
Yeah,
more.
basically,
Yes.
and then that's what you.
But like a lot more than drumming.
Right, exactly.
If I'm asking them to reflect on their experience with
Get
that,
aligned with what I'm gonna be.
that's their experience. So that's discovery. But that gives me important data about that program. And there's such times when based on that data. That did not give my students what I was trying to give.
That needs to be documented somewhere because the current classification.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so central office to collect
Totally modified.
your program. Maybe your office to collect this kind of feedback. The kind of feedback can, you know, help you determine what is needed to help you actually decision across the person.
So that's something we need to count for learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you were talking about earlier, yeah, I was making a connection there.
Send the same.
So looking at like teacher research, so action research, whatever you want to call it, or reaction research. You need to have more of that data collected.
I'm Geneva, by the way.
Nice to meet you. I'm Clifford.
Grabbing to change their.
And truly, at a departmental,
Kinds of things.
and institutional level.
Perspective, so it kind of ties with what you were talking about.
Way, and they actually come up with something. Whatever you do with your assessment, could you please ask this
In
question?
general.
Or whatever you do, these two different questions. could you please include that?
What they've done at the U of L is added it to the student eval, which is just like, we talked about this last night, both Rod and I were like, duh.
I know when you said that, I went, oh, of course.
Oh, my God.
You don't have to worry about administering it.
No.
You know.
And then we have IA.
All right, Patrick, I guess they turn off the microphone in there. Not sure if they can hear us. So I just wonder if we could create a virtual environment over here so that we could engage a little bit with the virtual folks.
Yeah, cool. I'm here.
Okay, Patrick. So I was just wondering if we could use that shared link for the assessment form. And I'm putting some thoughts over here on the community portion. So just wondering if I could just trigger that idea and then people virtually online could just plug over there the other boxes. And would you think that would be a plausible idea?
Right. Can you share that?
Yeah, so it's the
Awesome.
same form that was shared over here upstream in our conversation. And that is an active folder, active file. So I can actually see people moving over there with the mouse or so we can actually use that.
Cool.
It is up there already. So then we don't need to create anything.
Okay.
Let me just open here. Yeah, I can actually see a lot of people there. So I'll just place, I don't know if you can see the same file, but I'll just place some of the things I was thinking in here. And this is basically just an example of something that I have been working on it.
Right. Can you put that, is there a link you can put in the bottom of this chat for that one?
Yes, I'll just copy the link again and paste it here because it was shared in the chat upstream over here. Let me copy again.
I've got too many windows open.
Yeah, yes. Developing personal, is this the name? Yes, that's the name. Let me just developing personal, copy link. Link copied here and paste the link. Just paste over here. There's exactly the
Oh,
same
gotcha.
link that was
Yeah, yeah.
above, and then I'm just typing things in here.
Cool. Yeah.
Let me get here.
Oh, cool.
So, and again, so sometimes we get confused and we put the car in front of the horse, and then
Oh,
we
yeah.
think about the goals, right? But you develop goals to address a need, right? So that was my thinking process here. So I just put in caps letter the need, and then the goal for this. This is one of the community engaged classes I have.
Yeah.
And then what would we like to assess? I feel like we should steal some of the things that have been shared, right? Or model, not use the word steal. But so I just put it over here, these two things that Cunningham Henry has shared with us to model with. But I guess anyone can pitch in on the questions over here that we can ask, and I don't want you guys to feel like this is mine, although
Right.
I'm planning to use this.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope everyone.
So, currently, how like do you engage with the managers? Is this like,
Yep.
there's clearly, are you working in the Lubbock area, the
Yes.
entire sort of West Texas massive region, or
No.
both?
Yeah, so this is basically agriculture community
Yeah.
and or animal owners within the
Yeah.
region, and
Yeah,
Lubbock ISD high school students, Lubbock ISD
Oh, cool.
agri-STEM core facility.
Yeah.
So two major goals, so two populations of partners that I work with. One are producers, about 40 producers, or animal owners. It could be an animal shelter. It could be whoever's feeding is responsible for an animal. And that's the community part. But Lubbock ISD, the high school students, is my community as well, because they partner with us, with the college students. I'm also serving, I guess, our college students, right? Because they're developing soft skills and being in contact with these. But I just put it over here, two major populations that are outside the university, which would be the producers, let's call them producers, and the high school students. So we focus questions that we ask them based on opportunities for improvement. And maybe it's being too pessimistic, I guess, about the project, right? We are always thinking about things that we can improve.
Yeah.
But I would like to change that vision a little bit. So I'm just seeking for perhaps some ideas on how can we twist a little bit that vision of how can we improve, but getting some other meaningful inputs from them.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that only. So I can put over here opportunities for improvement as well. I think it is an important component, but I feel like I've been too much on that, I guess.
Right. What is the format? Like, do you survey or interview these folks? There's like focus group situations. Is this like is this assessment a basis for your research, or is this an assessment like a sort of a program level assessment, or both?
No, yeah. So this is basically all nothing to do with. I don't have a university format or anything that I push that information up by any means.
Yeah.
But this is basically surveyed questions related to this on that. We have a main event at the end of the semester. That's not the only interaction point of it, but we have that event at the end of the semester, and then I have basically questions on a paper being filled up by these people at the end. And then the students are verbally surveyed when we stop by the tangibles that are presenting. So then my judges are taking that information on the specific questions that I asked them. So the students verbally in this event, and the producers handwritten form at the event as well, which
Right,
both of
right.
these things are at the very end. Both of these things are at the very end of the activity. Maybe that's just not the perfect moment. I don't know, or maybe I should be doing things throughout. I guess. Again, I'm just throwing things out there. I'm not pretty sure how other people are doing this. So
Yeah, so essentially this is like sort of a program where it's like providing resources to the managers and providing education to the students.
yes, yes.
Great, yeah.
And the students are the venues for this information dissemination or assessment.
Right, right. So I mean, yeah, I think the pre and post testing is really, that sounds like a good model for, assessing like,
Mhm.
how these different folks are seeing their relationship with TTU in the program. I think definitely that idea about, that opportunity for further collaboration, or like, kind of like maybe like within this, like a sort of like a miniature needs assessment, like what are you seeing as your needs as an owner manager, that could be interesting. And then those opportunities of improvement, it sounds like you say you think you've got enough like sort of feedback around what that looks like. But in terms of like what you're getting back from those opportunities for improvement, like, based on like what that's telling you, maybe that is fodder for like sort of some sort of an additional thing that you'd like to dig deeper into.
Mhm. Yes. So I guess these questions they give an idea about their willingness, their receptiveness, their if they like the activity, and their willingness to collaborate again based on their responses. But again, I feel kind of dummy at the moment because I feel like I have to have a specific goal of what would I like to assess with that, like the
Hmm.
theme with, right?
Yeah.
And rather than try to scavenge and things that we did wrong that we can get better.
Yeah.
So
I think from that perspective, I mean, I think like I mean, there's a lot of different things you could assess, of course, like I mean, like in framing your goal, like, I mean, the goal could be program improvement, right? Or maybe the goal is demonstrating that this is an effective program, or the goal is demonstrating that this is a program that needs more support. Or perhaps there's an assessment goal of, how, like, what do we need to assess to grow the program, right?
yes,
So,
I,
like, I always like try to like, I mean, clearly, like, one thing is like, in terms of just from like sort of, I guess, the theme of the talk and thinking about overall impact for the community and the institution, one idea could be, how do we look at how this program has, improved the ability of the agricultural communities to sort of, perform their job or their program. Yeah, how has this led to more information uh, for your program and for the university side of things? How has this changed the way that you're engaging? What are you learning from the program and from assessing it that's helping you engage better with this community, is another sort of, I guess, avenue of exploration.
mhm. And it's just by looking at my goals over here again is if my goal, if there is a need in engage with animal manager, engage with animal owners manager, I guess engage, I put a slash in for information.
Hmm.
If that's a need, perhaps we need to know if we have met that goal, right?
Yeah, a
If
1000%, right? Like,
so,
are you getting what you need from this program?
yes, kind of. So we could frame this as the our partners getting what they need. So in for one is producers getting useful information. And then I can specifically ask that and ask for examples actually, rather than asking, are you getting the useful information, which would be a pointless question, right?
Right.
It's very
yeah.
biased the way you answer that, but maybe give me an example of how could you implement what you learned in your
Yeah.
operation, right?
Yeah, and that's
So-
something that I think about a lot. You know, it's because I feel like decision makers and organizations that are accreditors or you know, title givers like Carnegie, you know, they frequently want this, you know, aggregated quantitative data that 87% of people agree or whatever, you know, whereas
Yeah.
for at the program level, that open-ended information is way richer, and gives you actual things to help drive program change or help you know, demonstrate that things are working or not working. I mean, that to me is the real value of assessment. Like, so we, you know, we spend all this time sort of rolling all this up to an institutional level, where for me, I would just prefer to take all of this information and you know, slice and dice it down to the, you know, the department or the class or the faculty person level, where, you know, the actual changes get made about the specific programs.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I guess it hits up the other thing that you guys were discussing is the output and the impact, right? So
Yeah.
I should have questions for both, right? I feel like we can use outputs to brag about ourselves and get
right.
funders, right? And but at the end of the day, the impact is what really matters. And so
Yeah.
maybe two sets of questions over here: outputs
Yeah.
and impact.
I feel like at a level where you don't have a huge amount of resources for an assessment, right? It's like a lot of good impact information comes from those sort of more open-ended items, you know, because like, you know, our office does not have the capacity to do longitudinal studies on individual activities, you know, like, so really when we're looking at a collection of hundreds of activities over the course of any given academic year, you know, we've got to really look and ask questions of the program organizers about how they're seeing the impact. And, you know, like, so for your program here, you're developing instruments. Like this is fantastic for me as someone at the central administration level, because then, you know, you can discuss what you see as your impact, but then when you're in a position to, you could also pass on these reports that you're developing based on your own assessments.
And the other thing, I guess, this assessment at the end of the day is I have to I need to convert this to a engaged scholarship in somehow, let's say several ways, but one is publications, right?
Yeah.
So this assessment has to help me with that, right? Otherwise, I have nothing on my hands to convert in information, right, for other people.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering a couple of common output and impact kind of let's call it research questions. Not maybe research is not the word here, but that are popular that can be converted to engage the scholarship. I guess if the information was valuable. I saw a glance in some of the questions you presented that I see that perhaps could be recycled in here.
Oh, definitely. Please use anything that looks helpful.
Just trying to remember here now. Probably I didn't take notes enough.
I can send you the PowerPoint if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And for everybody else in the chat, please feel free to to type things in here. So let's not make this a one-person child by any means. So.
On the other one that connects students to agricultural career paths, so empower students to be exposed to STEM career paths. Are these the high school students?
Yes.
Cool.
And that was kind of part of my question when I put it in the chat over there, because this is students kind of that they move along and we kind of end up losing track, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
they
totally.
So how do we keep track of these impacts in the future? Because we believe we are impacting their
Yeah.
future decisions, right?
That one is, I mean, it is a difficulty and really dependent on resourcing, right? It's like many times the people that are doing an activity or program level assessment like this do not have the capacity to turn this into a longitudinal study, you know?
Yes.
Like, so what we've seen in other ones, and a huge thing for doing this, number one, if it's possible, is like longevity of the program and keeping the program sustained. So that's like one thing, because like I think sometimes people come into programs, you know, with the idea that they're going to have or be able to sort of move towards something longitudinal, but then after their initial grant runs out, that program dies, and then it's a good thing it didn't spend a lot of time thinking about longitudinal study, because now there's no money for the program. But assuming like that the program, you know, is ongoing, I've seen a lot of, you know, people that don't have a huge amount of resourcing just really and it really comes down to who, you know, the person that probably instigated the program on the university side, maintaining those records themselves. You know, like we've had a really long-term ongoing partnership with a high school that's in our sort of place-based area, and the faculty member was with that for like 18 years, and she kept her own data on what her high school students, to the best of her ability, could like were up to, like what college they went to, did they go to law school, did they, and then she would track the ones that got on a law school path and kind of stay with this group of like several scores of students, and kind of did her own little mini longitudinal study around, you know, who was able to sort of carry through. So that could be sort of like a budget way, kind of like you know, you have your listing of students that you maintain year to year, and maybe you have some sort of ongoing survey with them afterwards, but this becomes sort of a lot to manage, you know?
At an institute.
Hey, Pat,
Yes.
we're gonna like bring everybody together now, so we can share what we have been doing. It sounds as though you guys had a nice, strong conversation going on there online. Good for you all. Well, what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna spend some time sharing what we have so far, and I want the people online to share as well. So please don't be shy. So Becky, is there any way we can maybe like remove this so we can see people's faces, if you know, if they want to share? So we want to hear from you. So for those people who work on students, okay, people online plus the people here in the room who work on students, would you mind sharing with us what you have come up with so far? And the people online, you know, you can just unmute yourself, you turn your cameras on so we can see your beautiful and handsome faces as you share with us. Okay? We want to hear what you have done, what you have so far. All right. So anybody online worked on students? Any online people worked on students? I guess not.
Uh,
So one person.
Yes. So my name is John Serturi. Thank you for doing this, for the opportunity. So kind of a double working on community part. So our population over here would be students, but also producers, agriculture producers. So I guess we could go in both sides in here. And one of the things that we like to brag about is the goals we have for the program, right? But that's kind of putting the putting the horse in front of the car, because that goal is only valid if you're addressing a need, right? So that's why perhaps we have the first square over there, which is the need. It's we like to talk about our goals, but at the end of the day, we are trying to address a need. But basically over here, and and I placed the information in the document that we were working on, that you guys posted earlier. So I just used that template over there.
We got it up.
Okay, yeah, but I guess the main thing that would like to the square in the middle over there, and then at the very end is where we get to the questions that we actually need to add. And we basically talk more about themes over here than specific questions. Perhaps we can develop this. But one of the things is that Patrick was mentioning, and I think is very interesting, is the opportunity for longitudinal assessment, given that once the students graduate, let's talk just about the students as you ask, Henry. Once they graduate, we have, I don't know, a very good tool to keep track on the impact of what we did on their future careers or things that they developed, perhaps empowered because of these activities. So I just put it over there at the bottom, the opportunity for longitudinal assessment as one thing I would like to assess. However, venues and questions that could be addressing that aspect, I would like to throw for everybody to think about, because I think among the other ones that we wrote in there, I think this one is quite difficult for me to wrap my mind around, at least.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. I like what you have there about what you would like to assess, the perception about the university. It's important that we know what students think about our institution. So I like that question, indeed. The opportunity for further collaboration, what needs to be improved? These are all stuff that we need to work on. So in terms of longitudinal assessment, this is something we can do. We can collect data over several years. That will give you an opportunity to look at longitudinal assessment. So I like this very much. And this is perfect for a particular course that you are teaching or a particular project, and something we know we can share with other faculty members who are teaching these courses. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Okay, what about the people here in the room who work on student? Do you guys mind sharing what you guys a quick brief overview?
So we talked about a lot of things. We looked at identifying the need. We talked a lot about student learning outcomes, content knowledge, civic development, ethics. We talked about for the next column, what would you like to assess? Student skills, student self-efficacy with engagement, their intrinsic motivation to continue to do the work. Those words, I just wrote them down. Feeling competent, connected, empowered to advocate. We also talked about faculty and they're studying their own practice. So really wanting to assess how they study their practice with SOTL or action research, et cetera. And then how do they use the data to make decisions with teaching? So really wanting to think about that and then making a connection to Carnegie for that. And then another thing that we talked about, but we didn't label, is ripple effects with students. So that's another thing we'd really like to figure out how to assess. We talked about sources of data. So the course evaluation data that you talked about with us, also doing student focus groups and maybe ones that were embedded in instruction that faculty would actually carry out, but also some kind of randomized focus groups of students who'd been in different engaged classes. The faculty survey, of course, where they're having to self-report. And one of the things kind of going back to SOTL that Sarah talked about is doing a lot of before, during, and after reflection, pre-reflection, during reflection when they're involved in a project, and then at the end of the course, and getting an IRB and creating a template for that for faculty to use so they can easily study their own practice. And so I think that's definitely something that we want to work on. And then in the last column, we came around to assessment questions. We took your 2 questions from the survey. So I won't read those again, but that's kind of where we ended. We just sort of ran out of time, but we had a really great discussion. The last thing we talked about was exemplars for SOTL, because I was talking about how that seems to be kind of a struggle for faculty, and how do we incentivize them to do this and to really study their practice, publish from their practice, And their dog volunteered to be an exemplar. She's not allowed. So I'm gonna.
I think that's how I praise that.
She suggested as an exemplar and I said, I think you'd be perfect. So,
I think a lot has happened in Melanie's head.
Said and now recorded.
that's right. A lot of people are gonna witness this, so. I think that's it. Do you all want to add anything to Sarah, Carrie, or Sarah? What I said?
No, we just had a really good discussion, and I think at its heart, when we're talking about students, we really do have to talk about the faculty, right? And so, we'll see what the conversation was from the group that focused on faculty, but you cannot talk about the students and their learning and the outcomes and stuff without talking about the faculty, because it does, that thoughtful course design and assessment is so critical to this.
So that's why I always write teaching hyphen learning.
Yeah.
Because they're just so connected. Everybody is learning and teaching.
Yeah,
So,
I like the fact that you guys went beyond and then define what you want to assess and possible items, to assess it. You guys went to methodology, talk about reflection, using reflection as the way. So faculty can use reflection as a way to assess student learning. Pre-post reflection, you can do pre-reflection and then post-reflection to see what has changed. We talked about doing focus groups. As a central office on your campus, you can do focus group with random selection of students or with a particular class and gather rich data. That way, on what students are learning. And some institutions do that. It does require more capacity. You gotta have the personnel to do it. You gotta have the time to do it. You gotta, go get the permission from faculty. And some faculty are hesitant to have you come in and work with their students. So it takes a little bit more work, but if done right, it can provide you with rich data. So I'm glad to see you guys went beyond what I asked you guys to do. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you, thank you. What about these guys here on faculty? What do you have on the faculty?
So we were interested in faculty involvement as well as faculty success. And things that we would like to assess are what are some potential, whether they be real or perceived barriers. For faculty getting involved with community engaged scholarship, what needs for support they may have, but also evidence of success where faculty have been involved in community engaged scholarship. One of the big areas of emphasis here at Texas Tech is, in particularly with our Office of Outreach and Engagement with the Vice President of Research, is thinking about extramural funding. We're really going to be putting a lot of emphasis on getting federal dollars as we pursue AAU-like status here at Texas Tech. And I have a wonderful colleague at the University of Louisville who was willing to share some faculty survey information with us. And so what we spent a lot of our time doing is going through that existing survey and looking at the nuances versus what you have at University of Louisville versus here at Texas Tech. And so for one of the questions, we were really wanting to emphasize this extramural funding because we're also part of ARIS, that
Whatever it stands for.
advancing research in my gosh, advancing research in society. Well, I'm part of that for 3 years now. But we also, as I mentioned earlier, we now have make sure that we're in alignment with those 5 areas of research emphasis out of the VPR's office. To your point of making this really university aligned, so that we can start tracking which of those areas are you aligned with and how's community engaged scholarship benefited that. One of the other things that we're interested in doing is measuring those faculty that tend to work with either STEM core out of the VPR's office or our office in terms of enhancing their broader impacts or societal impacts of all grant proposals. We can now track that on the front end. Or did you work with Henry? Did you work with Pat? And then we can go through and look at the success rate of those federal dollars to see if those that worked with an engagement specialist have higher funding rates than those that do not. Again, which provides wonderful fodder for our office and the integration of ours into the culture of the university. And then one other thing that we were really interested in that you'll hear about this afternoon is an emphasis on graduate student engagement. And so we wanted to really highlight that and investigate to the extent the barriers or success with faculty training their graduate students and mentoring their graduate students on engagement. So those are, and then the last thing is really focus on promotion and tenure. That's what my position was created to do here at Texas Tech, was to create that formal pathway that Cliff mentioned earlier with promotion and tenure, to try to make that a formal pathway at the university level, because I'm pretty confident we have evidence all over higher education. Once that pathway is institutionalized, the data that we get, to some people's point earlier, Brandon was talking about, Pat was talking about, if faculty get rewarded and recognized on the basis of engaged scholarship, they're much more willing to report effectively. So those are some things that we were using your survey as a baseline, as a springboard to expand to the culture here at Texas Tech.
Excellent. No, this is very good. You guys did a lot. You guys did a lot.
Do you have anything to add?
I think that's it. Yeah. It just, I think we also just want to make sure that we can figure out ways to measure changes over time. So thinking about the fact that we have 2 years for Carnegie, do we want to conduct these surveys annually, and do we want to make sure that we're targeting the right groups to get the kind of change that we want to see over time?
Yeah. And the more data you have in the short term, I probably the better, it will be for you. Good. I like the fact that you guys would think about measuring perception, the perceived challenges versus the real challenges, because some of them may be perceived challenging. But this, despite that, you have to address these challenges that faculty are facing. So I like that very much. Good. I mentioned that book, Assessing Service Learning and Civic Engagement. That book has we built our instrument from that book. And those instruments are valid and reliable. And so there's no need to create new instruments. You can just use those, use ours, and create your instruments. And we know it's some modification to suit the needs of your institution. So good. Anybody online work with faculty would like to share? You don't have to, but I don't want to make sure I give you an opportunity to share if you did work with faculty. Any takers? I gather there are no takers, and that's okay. All right, so let's go with people working on a community. Anyone online work with community? I would like to share. I want you guys to feel as though we forgot about you.
I could speak to that.
Okay, good.
I'm employed by an organization that is affiliated with the university as our host institution, but we do direct work with the community. We are the Northwest Texas Apex Accelerator Centers, and we provide technical assistance and education to small business owners who are interested in getting started in the government contracting realm. And so our engagement is twofold. Mine is further down on that worksheet that we were working on, because we need to engage with more small business owners, especially in rural areas. We serve like 130 counties in West Texas, from the Panhandle all the way down to like Del Rio area. And we really need to know what their needs are. They're just kind of outside the main work in the state of Texas. And so what are their products and services? What can they do for these government entities? Where do they need to engage them? Like, are they interested in doing local contracting, or all the way up to like Department of Defense contracting and doing some things overseas? But we're also restricted in metrics that we have to meet to keep the Department of Defense happy, because they're funding us. And so are those metrics actually matching up with those business owners' needs? Like, are we doing work that really pertains to them? And then how do we communicate that to our funders, and then, which are, politicians and whatnot, and then also be effective to them. And then we need to increase the stakeholder awareness of our program within the university. So I don't believe even we're under the Office of Research and Innovation. I don't believe that they all fully understand what we do, and that's our fault because we don't really engage with them very much. And so I would want to know, like, what do they know about it and about our program, and then also what's required of small business owners to engage in government contracting, and then just how we can work with them better and do exactly this, like take the research and things that are being done in the university to those small business owners and make sure that they're getting value out of the program.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like that this is project specific, working with these small business owners. And, how can you, work with them to better understand what their challenges are and how you can better work with them. So very much in line with what we are talking about. So thank you for sharing that, indeed. And again, this can be used as an exemplar for other projects that a faculty are working on or your office is working on out there as well. So if we, having these exemplars, we can use these to build out, to assess other projects that the university has. So thank you for sharing. And these guys over here is working in the community as well. So
Did you want to do?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh. We had a lot.
So we tried to orient our group around the strategic research theme of Thrive Rural Resilience. Because we had some players at the table who were interested in that domain and what community partners' perceptions were. Not only perceptions of how things were going or had gone over the previous year, but perceptions of future partnerships moving forward. So we talked about the identified need of a made-up project called How Can Art and STEM Be Combined to Improve Rural Education? So that was kind of our overarching question. We thought about assessing not only the kind of standard perception of Texas Tech, but also the community partners' perceptions of whether and how art could be combined with STEM to improve classroom attention, to improve graduation outcomes, maybe college attendance. Our assessment questions, we borrowed a few from your survey, so thank you very much, related to perceptions from community partners. I actually teach psychometrics, so I think it's very important to have those kind of informational questions over time to always return to that are asked the same way every time. Because looking at a question on how could we improve or further develop this partnership? Well, if Susie answered that question last year and Susie left that community organization and no one else knows what Susie had in mind to improve the partnership on this reporting form, then we can at least go back to the baseline informational question and understand how the overall perception is changing. But other change over time questions that we came up with were, what is required to sustain this partnership for another 1 year, 3 years? What level of responsibility do you desire with your Texas Tech partners? Does the reputation of Texas Tech serve as an impediment or maybe a facilitator of this partnership? And finally, do you know of any other community partners that want to connect with TTU and for what purpose? That's just kind of more of a spreading activation goal of trying to connect so that we're not always returning to the same community partners that have been identified over and over. So that's what we came up with.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a good. Again, a great foundation, Rod, you can take to build an instrument that you can send out to your community partners based on what came up there. Wonderful. I like the fact that you are asking a question about what can Texas Tech do to further this collaboration, getting their input. One of the questions that Carnegie wants us to do is give community a voice in addressing university policy. That question right there is giving the community a voice to determine what kind of policy, programming the university puts in place. So that is a question you can actually use in your Carnegie application. So I like it very, very much. Gives the community a voice.
Well, it was one of the things that we spoke about was You know, early on in your presentation, you talked about storytelling and talking about storytelling for our donors. Well, in this particular instance, it's about storytelling for the community so they can evolve into other community partnerships.
Yes.
And then also work with us, because if they have that storytelling for themselves, it's an advantage for everybody that's involved.
Absolutely. So important. So important. Yeah, indeed. The question that we have in there about is university an impediment or asset, however it's phrased. We included a question back around 2016 or so. And the reason for that question is that we were going through a very hard time at our institution. We were going through like several scandals. There was a scandal with the president. President was forced to resign. We had 2 basketball scandals. Over, you know, coach was forced to resign or fired, whatever you want to call it. We had cases where people were embezzling money from the university. We had 3 cases where people were embezzling money from the university. I mean, these things all happened in a matter of like months. They had dark cloud hanging over the university. And by the time we were like getting over one, issue, something popped up. It was all over the press. The community knew what was happening. And so we wondered, what do people think about our university? And so we included a question. Surprisingly, despite all the stuff that was going on, people still think highly of the university. The partnership, they love the partnership, and they wanted to partner with us. We were not seen as an impediment to their organization and to partnering. And we used that to show the value of community engagement. It was shared with our leadership and said, people, despite everything that is happening, community engagement is still very, very important. Look at the data. You can argue with the data. You can argue with the data. And so we have, thank God, come out from under that dark cloud, but we have kept that question. We have kept it. So sometimes circumstances leads to items that you insert in your survey. All right, this is great. Any final questions? Pat, any last you want to share?
Just thank you so much for having us and spending the morning with us. It was a real honor to speak with you, and hopefully we were helpful. And please get in touch with me at pat.smith@louisville.edu if there's anything that I can help you with.
Yeah, both Pat and my email are at the end of the slide, which Becky will share with you. So email us if you have specific questions going forward. We'll be happy to respond to your email. And Pat, I know it's really, really past your lunchtime because you're in Eastern time zone, so you must be starving. So go enjoy some lunch. Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking both Pat and Henry.
And thank you guys for having us. And for the people online, thank you for being with us this entire morning.
So for the folks online, if you would, if you can share those documents that you were filling out with us, Alex and myself, we can sort of concatenate all of that data and be looking at that. And the folks in the room will collect those handouts and we'll scan those out and we'll share those more broadly with all the attendees, both in-person and virtual as well. We'll capture all that for you. Alex, anything else?
Nope, that is it.
Okay, everyone, let's thank Henry and Pat one more time, please.